Five. Um, Josh, are you able to support Brittany in the background to sort of get her mic and I can keep us rolling? Okay, wonderful. I appreciate you. Okay. Okay. Good morning, all. Welcome officially to the Standards Recommendation Committee. We're so excited to have you. Members, I've mentioned this, but all of these resources that we're sharing today are or will be in your folder today. So feel free to follow along with us. But we're so excited to have you here. Okay. The Tennessee State Board of Education's English Language Arts, ELA, Standards Recommendation Committee, SRC, we love our acronyms here, called an electronic meeting at 9 a.m. Central Time today, Monday, August 25th, 2025. This meeting is called to onboard committee members and to hold our election for the chair and the vice chair. Due to the time-sensitive nature of this meeting's agenda, and due to the fact that committee members reside across our state, it was determined that a physical group and a quorum of the members could not be assembled in Nashville for this specific meeting. And as such, we will conduct this meeting virtually. Notice of this meeting was posted on the State Board's website, along with the agenda and instructions for the public to access this meeting. Okay, so here's our agenda for today, which is in your folder. Gone through our welcome. Here we are at the agenda. And after this, we'll do the norms and introductions for about 20 minutes. And in parentheses, you'll see about how much time we're hoping to spend. We've got 2 hours together, but of course, no shortage of things to do around here in state government. Then we'll do a standards recommendation committee refresher and prep work. You'll notice throughout these sections that are more content-based, there's Q&A every moment. So no stupid questions, please ask. We'd love to hear you. I don't think Rachel, Nathan, and I want to hear ourselves talk for 20+ minutes. So we'd love for you to join in with us. Then the illustrious Nathan James will guide us through government relations and communications guidance. He's got some fun announcements coming up. Then we will hold the chair and vice chair election. If you are interested, as you know, your prep work was to prepare a 3-minute statement on your interest in the role and the experience and aptitude that you bring to it. And finally, Rachel Supayer, General Counsel, will close us out with some guidance on open meetings, public records, and laws to be aware of as you engage as an appointed member of a state body. Okay, norms. Now, y'all are educators and professionals, and I've met all of you, so I have no concerns, but just so we're all on the same page, we commit to you as staff and ask in return for your focus. We know the world is busy, the phones are ringing, but as much as you can minimize distractions and be present, we're really grateful for that, and we commit that to you. Engage, come prepared. This gig does come with homework. Be an active listener and contributor. Collaborate, commit to working with others towards student-focused outcomes. Be transparent. Communicate. Share open and honestly. Seek to understand. And perhaps the most important one in our work here is respect. Recognize and appreciate individual differences, opinions, and needs. Remain student-focused and nonpartisan, and monitor your airtime. The best and hardest part of this work for me is that it matters to, I've shared with many of you, all of Tennessee's nearly 1 million students and thousands of teachers, many of which are on our call and serving on our committee, which we're thrilled about. But it means that this work matters. And so there will be different opinions, both big and small, as we come into this work. And I just ask you to, think of these norms as you're engaging with folks. Okay. These are just the norms that we've used on the 2 previous committees. We're not committed to these. And members, any additions, thoughts, questions, revisions on these norms? These will take us through our next online meeting, our in-person meetings, and just until your term is over. If we want to make any changes to these down the road, you let me know. But this is what I commit to you and ask in return. Okay. Now, I have met all of you and you're all lovely, both staff and members, but we're going to be, working elbow to elbow for a couple days here. So I was hoping we could put some faces with some names. If you have your camera on, that would be great, just so we can literally put the face in the name. But for the next 15 minutes, I'd love to hear from members and staff, if you will indulge me. We'd love to hear your name, your role, your organization. Educators, you're welcome to use your school and district, if that makes sense. And in 1 to 2 sentences, what is your secret sauce? And, while I am doing this to, break the ice, so to speak, also, our previous committee members can tell you that this standards review is a team sport. You can tell by Josh and Nathan and Rachel and Michael on this call, everyone is working hard to help you. And we cannot do this work alone. And you'll find, our members are good friends now to this day, and texting and all the good things. So, and because we're going to have to rely on each other, it'd be super helpful to know what your strength is. And I know each of you, so I know you have a secret sauce. So definitely pick one, or I will tell the group how great you are, and then just ask you to popcorn to the next person. So I can go first. My name is Brianna Summers. I'm the Director of Policy and Academics here at the State Board of Education in Tennessee. I try to embody my secret sauces, showing gratitude. I truly believe that, no one has to do anything for you in this world, and everything is a gift. So I try to thank people where I can, whether it's, my coworkers or y'all or in my personal life. That's a little bit about me. I'm going to take down these slides if I can, so we can see all the beautiful faces. And Michael, do you mind going next? Oh, and when you're done, just popcorn to somebody, just like I did. Thank you, Michael.
Good morning. First, I'll just note I'm incredibly proud of this body of work and wanted to thank you all for being here. There are countless hours that are put into this. Y'all are experts, and we appreciate the time that you spend with this. I'm Michael Durline, Deputy Executive Director of Policy and Research with the State Board. The word that came to my mind was perspective. I've worked at the school level. I taught high school special education in Brooklyn, New York. I worked for the New York City Department of Education for a while. I worked for the Tennessee Department of Education, and I've been with the State Board now for 3 years. So I kind of, for better or for worse, I'm always thinking about all the different vantage points. And I will pass it off to Rachel.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I was hoping I'd be called on last. We can need some additional secret sauce creation time. I don't know what mine is. Open to any, suggestions from my colleagues. I do a lot of editing rules, so I'm really good with track changes and comment bubbles. And I guess as a lawyer, for a board, that's, a pretty important secret sauce to have. So it's not the most exciting one in the world, but I do love a good red line, and to try and think of something a little more creative. I also worked for Metro Nashville Public Schools as their board attorney for a little while in the Department of Education. So I try to always, bring students first at the, forefront of all legal decisions we make. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm just very grateful to see all of you participating. I have 2 members of the legal team here, Todd Madison and Jamie Formont. I will popcorn over to Todd first, if he's listening. Okay, I'm going to popcorn over to Jamie first. And if not, I will introduce their secret sauces for them.
So I think right now my secret sauce is that I'm new to this position and to the team, and I think my secret sauce is that I was able to get this position. I really wanted it. I'm very grateful to be here. So there you have it.
Yes, I should have just mentioned that this is Jamie's second week with us, so we're excited to have her here, and she's going to be learning all about state standards this week. Jamie, do you want to popcorn it over to anyone else on the call?
What about Catherine Stout?
Wonderful. And congratulations, Jamie. It's always fun to come into a new position. Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Stout. I am a former educator, but are you ever really a former educator? And a current communications specialist. So I think my secret sauce as it comes to this organization or this role in particular is that I have worked at every level of a school system. I've been a teacher, I've been a department chair, I've been an administrator, but I've also been a journalist, bureau chief, and I'm currently in divinity school. And I know a Bible study course is one of the courses that we're reviewing. So I'm excited to be able to wear all of my hats as we review the standards, and excited to work with this group. And I'll popcorn it over to Annie.
Hi, my name is Annie Dockery. I'm an 8th grade and 9th grade ELA teacher at Maryville Junior High School. I would say that my secret sauce, I guess, is that I'm a teacher probably mostly because I love to learn. And so I'm always trying to learn as much as I can and help and use that learning to inform what I'm doing. And then hopefully the fact that I've taught 8th and 9th grade is helpful for the alignment aspect. And I'll popcorn to Miss Patty.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Patty Baird. I'm an independent consultant. I have consulted probably for almost every government agency at the national level, as well as across the state of Tennessee, which was incredibly interesting. Being a lifelong Tennessee resident, I would say that my secret sauce is to always focus on communicating effectively, but with care, because we can all communicate, but if we don't do it, realizing the situation we're in and who we need to reach with the message, we probably have failed. So that's my secret sauce. And with that, I'll popcorn over to Lacey.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lacey now. I am an AP teacher. Currently teach 2 AP courses, AP English Language and AP Seminar. I have taught 6th, 8th, 9th, and 11th grades. So I have experience across grade bands and grade levels. I'm currently department chair. I've led various teams over the years. I would say my secret sauce is humility, because without humility, then I'm not able to listen to my students, listen to my colleagues, and as Brianna mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, education is a team effort, and so then we can all build relationships and really be successful together. So I'm appreciative. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And I thank you very much. And I'll popcorn over to Larry.
Good morning, y'all. I'm Larry Kernagus, retired principal from Wilson Central High School. And I am so happy to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. I guess my secret sauce is teaching teachers how to teach. Since retirement, I've been working at MTSU and their teacher preparation, and it's been probably the crowning point of my career. So I'm glad to get here where it all starts with the standards. And now I'm going to popcorn to Nathan James.
Thanks. I'm Nathan James. I'm part of the team of state board staff that's going to help you all through this process. Um, my mother was a teacher. I grew up with that. My wife is a teacher. Um, I've taught a little bit at the post-secondary level, um, but um, but I've been working, I guess, since I was about 20. Most of my professional career has been in the creation of education policy and law. And so kind of looking at the macro and how do we shift sectors um, to best give our students the chance, the ability and the skills needed to be about the business of independence and self-governance. I don't know if I have any secret sauce, but to me, I always think about at the end of the day, with all this work that we do, we got to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and be happy with the way we've spent our lives. And I think that's a really important aspect to keep in mind. And you know, when you're devoting your life and your business and the things that you do to the education and the nurturing of the next generations, that's pretty worthwhile stuff. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to get to know each of you. Miss Brittany, have we figured out the microphone situation there?
Testing?
Yay!
Oh, yay. Okay. I think the problem is my technology, everything was, I had to go in through the app because our school, I think, like the firewall or whatever was blocking something. So I think I'm good now. Okay. Is it my turn? Okay. I am Brittany Singletary. This is my 21st year in the classroom. I teach fifth grade ELA, so I teach the English standards all day long. That's what I do, and I think the secret is just to keep the kids at the center. At the end of the day, it's not what I want, it's not what you want, it's what our students need. So.
I know you're working out tech, Brittany. Let's see, Josh has not gone.
Hey everybody, I am my fifth week here at the state board as the communications officer. You're probably going to thought I would say 5 years, but no, only 5 weeks. Before that, I was with Tennessee Department of Education and Communications, and worked in a wide gamut of different communications, broadcast, public relations, content creation. But I'm just really happy to be here and to support kids in education. And I'd say my secret sauce, I don't know if it would be like a secret sauce, but um, I guess I'm good at working calm under pressure. You may not see it on my face, things flying around me and like that, but on the inside, I may be freaking out, but I try to stay calm under pressure. And I think that's a good thing to have, because your energies can carry to other people. So especially in my work and stuff like that. So I try to be calm. That would be my secret sauce. Excited to be with you all today. And I will popcorn it over to, let's see who hasn't gone yet. Rosemary?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am Rosemary Winters. I am a 27th year educator in public schools and Shelby County schools. Some of the things that I like to do is be a voice, an advocate for our students. And my secret sauce is humility and just being there to meet the needs of our students and making sure that they're at the forefront of education. The area of special education for 26 years have been my goal and my dream to make it happen for our students. And I'm just grateful to be a part of this committee. Thank you so much.
Lucas, are you going to take us home?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I am Lucas Hilliard. I teach at White House High School and Sumner County Schools. I teach a variety of different courses, primarily AP courses, but I also teach English 2 honors. I have also served on the leadership team for Sumner County Schools for a number of years. I feel like my secret sauce is just centering students in my decision-making process, especially Tennessee students. I am a product of Tennessee public schools. I've lived in Tennessee my entire life. And so I can kind of imagine myself in the position the students are in a very one-to-one kind of way. And so I want to make decisions that are going to benefit the students going through the system in the way that those decisions could benefit me when I was a younger person.
Thanks, Lucas. Do we miss anybody? Okay. Well, I appreciate y'all indulging me, especially coming up with those secret sauces. They were all right, by the way. Okay. Let me get the screen share rocking and rolling again. Okay. And I will say it's a little hard to see everyone while I'm doing this. So if you need me, you just come off mute, you shout it out, all the things. Okay. Let's see if I can get that. Well, it still didn't like it. If you see me looking over here, I'm looking at my notes. It's not cooperating with me screen wise. Okay. So here we are, and could not agree with Michael more. Thank you so much for your service. I've loved getting to know each of you. It's really wonderful. And I know some of you were appointed back in March. See if I can get this moving. I know some of you were appointed back in March, so just want to make sure everybody was on the same page because it's been a minute. And all of our resources for our introduction meeting, they're on your drive, so you can watch the recording if you'd like. You can do all the things, but just to get our brains moving in the right direction. I'm a former middle school teacher, and I totally agree. Was it Catherine that said you never leave the classroom? Totally. I think it shows on the slide because I'm doing a who, what, when, where, why, how. So what your task as a committee is to review the ELA standards thus far and the new information that we have since our last committee met, and ultimately create a final standards for state board review and vote. And I think I'm so thrilled that you all are on this committee because you've already spoken in your secret sauce as to the why of us doing this. Our task here is to maintain relevant, rigorous standards to prepare Tennessee's K-12 students for college and career. And that, is almost word for word an amalgamation of our mission here at the state board, right? Rules, policies, and practices for college and career for students. Okay, when and where? I mean, great job because we've already knocked out the first bullet point. You're all here. The 8/25/25 onboarding meeting. We're all virtual. I appreciate you bearing with WebEx and the tech and all the things. Your next meeting will be September 5th. That will also be virtual, same platform. So hopefully we've worked out all the kinks today, but you'll hear from stakeholders like the previous committee chairs and folks like that to hear sort of what they've been doing and thinking about and feedback that they have for you. And we've talked about this, but it's for this committee to consider, but not, you don't have to necessarily implement every piece of feedback, and it would be nearly impossible to do so. So, that all of that information on that Friday is for your consideration and review. Finally, our work days will be in the Tennessee Tower on Rosa Parks here in Nashville. We're so excited to welcome you and feed you and hang out with you. That's where the team sport really begins, and that's really where our chair and vice chair will lead us thoughtfully and gracefully, and where state board staff sort of take a back seat. And that is when we will be actually looking at each standard in the K-12's cornerstone and making decisions and discussing what's best for Tennessee students. Okay, how are we going to do this? Ultimately, what it'll look like is, as this committee, you'll have your pacing guide, and let's say we start writing at 10 a.m. We'll look at each writing cornerstone thus far that we have based on the revisions and discuss and go from there, make some decisions. And then for the sort of supporting language, intro, appendix, references, we'll sort of get on some shared documents. That's where Rachel's secret sauce comes in handy. So if you have any track changes, go to Rachel. No, okay, please go to me. But if you don't know track changes, you definitely will by Thursday when we wrap up. Next, the WHO, the State Board of Education, are members. They're wonderful, and they're your ultimate decision maker, right? After that, our state board staff, we are your cheerleaders, your facilitators, your connectors, all the things. After that is our Department of Education. They're wonderful. They'll be here on September 5th. They are a separate agency, but they are the ELA content experts. And many of them have been teachers for a very long time here in Tennessee and elsewhere. Next are our EAT chairs, our educator advisory team chairs. They have, led this work thus far, and they're here to sort of give you the update on what's been going on and answer any questions you have so that you feel up to speed. And they will be there at your meetings to answer any questions you may have. Finally, Scantron, you'll hear from them on that Friday the 5th. They are qualitative and quantitative data experts, and they have created the reports that are in your prep work to see what the public has to say about the standards in their most recent version. Okay, speaking of prep work, okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at that document that I shared and have started working on the drive. If you do not have access to the drive, please let me know ASAP. It is pretty impossible to do this work without it. And we just have so many documents, and I totally recognize that. And I just want to say on the front end, if I can be helpful with technology, I love technology and love helping people with it. So if that's us getting on a meeting and going through things line by line, I'm happy to. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Next, all of your to-do work is on that basically one pager of your to-do list. So if you're like, what do I need to do? You can just go, I've kind of put it roughly in order of that to-do list of what sort of needs to happen. And I would characterize your prep work in sort of 3 categories. One, which is the majority of it, is reading. So, but you're all ELA teachers, so I'm not worried. I would put it in sort of 2 categories. One, I've tried to be thoughtful about what to skim and what to actually read deeply. So the guidance there is to skim the work thus far and to read the most up-to-date information, because that's what you'll actually be deciding on. And again, you'll get a presentation on what's happened at a high level. So, don't feel like you need to ingest every single word on every single page necessarily, unless you'd like to. From there, I would put the next category of your work in terms of reviewing, and that's really like comms, logistics, be aware of, know where you're going and what you're doing. But I will also present on the 5th your logistics. So call me, text me, email me if you have any questions about logistics. You'll get your logistics memo shortly before September 5th meeting. And then on September 5th, I will go through it in greater detail for any questions you have before we head to Nashville on Monday. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, you've got one item that you need to complete. And again, the teacher never leaves me. So this was my latest attempt at a worksheet. It's been a minute. But... Okay, this is what it is. It's our ELA SRC standards priority reflection. And this is just a screenshot of it. And it's, again, in your drive folder. There's some directions at the top, but this is just a screenshot to show you what we're working with. But this document is to go section by section, just as we will in our meetings, and identify strengths, areas of improvement, and questions. And the why behind this is a couple-fold. One, to sort of organize your thoughts. Again, we're going to be meeting 8:30 to 4:30 for 4 days, and those days are long, which is part of why it's a team sport. And just want you to have a graphic organizer to collect your thoughts as we go through, because it can be really tempting to sort of veer off and turn left. And if we need to turn left, that's cool. But we have roughly a couple hours to hit each section. So your task is to be done Thursday afternoon. So really want to make sure that we use that time judiciously. And again, if we find that everyone really wants to dig into those like foundational literacy standards and the pacing guide doesn't have enough time, great. That's incredible feedback from me and our chair and our vice chair to know, okay, we need to resort some things. We need to add an hour to foundational literacy, but this other group of standards we're good with for the most part. It's a give and take here. This document is due to me at the end of the day, whenever you have a chance to send it, on September 5th. And on Monday, when we are in person, you'll share a 3-minute overview of sort of what you determined here. So you obviously couldn't read this whole document in your 3 minutes, but just a couple bullet points on what you really want to focus on so that members are aware of where we need to spend our time and how. You can find this document, shocker, in the drive, which I'm happy to send it to you if you can't find it. It's on your member to-do list hyperlinked, so you can open that document and you can print it, you can download it, you can text it to me, whatever works best for you. Just get it to me via email by end of day the 5th. And the reason why I did the 5th is in part because you'll have your presentations on the 5th. So, you know, if we're working smart, don't want y'all to work too hard. I know it's a lot of prep work. So my thought there was, as you're hearing those presentations, right? If somebody says something, you're like, that's amazing, let's do that. Go ahead and feel free to take notes while we're having those meetings. It's really, hopefully those presentations will be helpful to you. But of course, you know, bring in your own ideas as well. Let's see. Okay, and I put an example here in gray at the top, and I just sort of made some stuff up, so don't take it too literally in any way, but just to get your brains moving. You can do bullet points, you can do 50 bullet points, you can do 1 bullet point, just whatever you need to feel successful to engage based on our norms for our work days. Okay, that's that. Okay, what questions do we have? I'm gonna move you. Questions about prep work, questions about SRC, questions about what we're about to do.
I was saying that there's some in one of the documents it had like a list of appendices, but I wasn't able to click on those. Is there a way for us to see those so we can review those?
Great question. It should be in your folder, but I'm happy to check on the settings and all of that good stuff. If you go under, let's see, if it's SRC and then prep work, and then you go, I think it's 1.standards, and then you'll go under proposed standards. This is really testing my memory on our drive organization. This is good. Go under proposed standards. There should be a spreadsheet with the actual standards and the cornerstones and what the committee's been working on, like nuts and bolts. And there should be a document that says like supporting language, both for the electives and the standards. And I will say one of our goals as the committee thus far is to sort of get those documents all combined into one. We've been working on that for many years. And ELA is our last one to get one document, so educators don't have to work with. At this point, we're at 3 PDFs. We're trying to get down to 1 PDF. So it's there, but great question, Annie. I'm going to write it down and make sure we're good, and I can send you the link. What other questions do we have? Okay, I won't bug you any longer. With that, I would love to pass it to Mr. Nathan James, who's going to lead us through some government relations stuff, some comm stuff, and the, you know, maybe the highlight, the election, maybe not the highlight. We'll see. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, Brianna, I did want to ask, before I get into this, would you like me to share our good news at this point, or where would you like that?
Now is great.
Okay, well, I'm pleased to say that we've got enough money in the budget that all the members of this committee will be receiving at least $1,000 stipend. Your chair and vice chair will get a $1,500 stipend. So it's a $500 difference there. But with that, you know, commitment of being a vice chair or chair, there's more time involved. So we're very pleased about that. I'm tickled about that. So let's talk a little bit about how we got here, and then I'm going to put a document up that walks through some of our legal authority. We have to understand, and you all do as educators, that strong standards are the essential foundation of our improvement educationally as a state. It is a huge deal to have excellent standards. Keep in mind that Tennessee has struggled over time in terms of how it rated versus other states. We spent 7 decades really in the bottom 5. We spent a lot of time in Tennessee's history thanking God for certain other states that were just slightly worse than we were. And I'll tell you what, now we're in the top half. And to spend 7 decades in the bottom 5 to go to the top half academically across the board and with continuous improvement, even coming out of COVID, that's a really big deal. That is a really big deal. And it's essential that we understand that having excellent standards, that is to say, setting those levels where we expect our students to get to, not the curriculum, that's up to the locals, but to set those standards and have them be world-class standards are extremely important, okay? So I'll tell you what, I started with the state Senate. I've worked for Congress. I've been a governor's policy advisor, worked for the Senate Education Committee at different points in time, as well as in the private sector. And when I started with the Senate was 1998. So been at this work for a little while. And I will tell you, in my time, I saw 3 big political storms. All right. One was the income tax for 4 years. Another was the Tennessee Waltz. And the most recent was the Common Core situation. And most of the state's reaction to the Common Core, frankly, was also a reaction to how standards used to be made. There was a lot of creation of standards by committees behind closed doors at the Department of Education. It would be brought out, and the board at that point in time would agree to it. You folks are the experts, you know best, and off we go. And the rest of Tennessee's education world, including parents and citizens and everybody, because when you think about education, this isn't just of, by, and for the teacher. This is of, by, and for the society that wants to have people who are fundamentally capable of self-governance. So it is hugely important. And they couldn't have the buy-in because they were never asked. Their concerns were never considered. It was all very much done in a private way, kind of this is how it's going to happen. And to be very clear and honest, that's how it's still done in most states. So I want to offer my congratulations to you on your appointments, because this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. This process that we have began in 2015. It was really codified in 2016. And I guess you could say it's arguable. I don't know who's going to argue with me about it. I think the state of Tennessee has the country's most inclusive process for standards creation. And I mean, it is a process that involves all Tennesseans that want to get involved at several different steps of the way, right? So it's going to the public, letting any Tennessean weigh in on what ought to change and what shouldn't change with their standards. And then it's taken to groups of educators, and they sift through all that and they come back with their recommendation. And then it's back to the people again. And when all of that is done, it comes to the standards recommendation committees. Everybody can see my screen, I hope? Yeah.
Looks great, Nathan.
So just going through the statute, it's 49.1.3.12. It's been changed a little bit since 2015 and 16, but not a whole lot. This committee is composed of 10 members, ideally, with 4 by the governor and 3 each by the lieutenant governor, speaker of the Senate, and the speaker of the House of Representatives. And Their charge is to review and evaluate the recommendations of the two standards review and development committees, post the recommendations of the website for the purpose of, again, gathering additional feedback. Now, here's an interesting section. Those of you that were appointed by the governor are subject to confirmation by the Senate and House of Representatives, but appointments are effective until adversely acted upon by the Senate and the House. I don't know if these standards will be fully adopted by the State Board of Education before the legislative session begins, but part of this to consider is that you all hold the tenure of your office. You're in this office until the State Board of Education adopts the ELA standards on final reading. Okay, so it would come up to the board on first reading. The next quarterly board meeting is when it would be adopted on final reading. The Standards Recommendation Committee shall make these final recommendations on the new set of English language arts and math standards to the State Board of Education. Obviously, you all aren't doing the math part. Now, then it goes to the board, and they may adopt, reject, or make technical non-substantive revisions to the standards recommended by the committee. But the State Board of Education shall adopt a set of standards that fit the needs of Tennessee students in K through 12. So there's not a whole lot of the state board tinkering, okay? But if there are technical revisions and small things that need to happen, they can. It is possible for the board to say, these are wrong and send them back for you all to come up with a new set. I've never seen that happen. I doubt it would happen, okay? There's an awful lot of trust that is built in to this system. So if we look at defining roles in communication, or let's see, okay, yeah, I do need to cover some of these other things. The legislative clarification that academic standards are set by the state while curriculum is set by the LEA. This is a big deal because we do value local control with the state of Tennessee. And that means your local boards, the teachers, the superintendents will set the curriculum to get there. But they don't know where they're going without an excellent set of academic standards that tell students where they need to be by what point in time. And that's the work you're doing. Obviously, when the whole Common Core thing took place, there was an awful lot of media backlash, all right? And not just media, but from the legislature as well. One of the reasons that this law is created the way it is was to create the potential, at least, of a legislatively appointed majority so that the majority of the members of this committee would be appointed by the legislative branch. If we do get to the point that the legislature's back in session and you all are still in office and the various committees of the House and Senate actually schedule confirmation hearings, I will be with you to help you through that process. I was the analyst for the Senate Education Committee for a number of years that created really and began to use, at least in the modern era, this process of confirmation. So you will not be without help if that situation arrives. But it may not. It may not come. So let's see. Defining roles in communications. Each of you are now public officials in your own right. You have the right to speak on your own behalf. You do not have the right to speak on behalf of this committee. This committee speaks through its official actions. That's through its resolutions and its recommendations. You could, if you get a request for an interview, a member of the media wants to talk with you about this, first thing you ought to do is call Josh Walton on our team because he'll be happy to help you through the process with getting ready, potential answers, helping you draft responses, all of those kinds of things. As long as you are on this committee, you're not alone in terms of any of that. It doesn't happen a lot with members of the SRC, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make ourselves available. And that doesn't mean we're going to take a chance on that. But you do have the right to speak on your own behalf. Since the board only speaks, since the committee only speaks through its official actions, you'd want to say, well, this is what I'm thinking about. This is how I'm going to work on this matter. But you can't speak for the committee. Now, after the committee takes its action, that is the committee speaking. With its formal recommendation to the board, with the votes that it takes, that's how it speaks. It's the same way if you think about it from a legislative or a context, a senator can stand up and give a speech. That doesn't mean the Senate's doing something, right? It speaks through its resolutions and its actions. Now, Josh's cell number is on this document, and it's coming out to each of you. One of the things that, and there's only 17 of us that work for the State Board of Education, but one of the things that we take very seriously is our transparency. And that means if you call us, we answer the phone. We don't let things go to voicemail and die in the nether reaches. We're very interested in actually being accessible. So that also means if we're not in the office, that our desk phones are forwarded to our cell phone. So you can get in touch with us. And that's an important thing. Who's most likely to have media interaction? Well, the chair is, or vice chair, somewhat less, but most likely it's the chair. And even the chair can't speak for the committee. The chair can say, well, this is what the schedule is. These are the things we expect to take up. But each of you answer to the person in the mirror, right? In terms of how you feel and how you're going to vote. So again, let's take down that number. I think, Brianna, I'm perfectly happy for everybody to get this document, but Josh's cell number is 629-259-3575. And you probably have Brianna's already. If you don't have mine, it's 615-934-7076. You call me when you need to call me. Just when you need to, or if you want to. Okay, so that covers that part. Let me ask you, are there any questions or thoughts or concerns so far about what I've chatted about? Take that as a big goose egg. And I think what we'll do now is we're going to go into a somewhat more formal portion of the meeting. We're going to be electing a chair and a vice chair. And from these moments on, this is going to be a committee directed undertaking. And you're not going to have a staff person that kind of presides like I will at the beginning. Again, your chair is going to do that, or your vice chair will in the absence of the chair. So one of the things that Rachel is going to get into a little bit later are the open meetings requirements, okay? And because of those open meetings, you've all been told you can't just pick up the phone and call each other and talk about business of the committee. It has to be done on camera. Now, for that reason, it gets a little tough when you get into a thing like electing a chair in the first meeting, because you all haven't had the chance. Someone who wants to be considered for chair wouldn't necessarily have someone lined up to nominate them. So what we'll do first is we're going to call the roll to establish a quorum, okay? Remember that when the committee takes substantive action, it takes a majority of the members entitled to vote to do anything substantive, not just a majority of the members who are present, but in this case, since we have 8 members appointed, it's always going to take 5 votes. 5 votes to take an official action. Even if only 5 of you are present, it will take 5 votes. So adjournment, some privilege motions, things like that are a little bit different, but that's the number to keep in mind. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Ms. Summers to call the roll to establish a quorum, and then we will go into the process of electing a chair and a vice chair. If you would like to nominate someone, or someone says I'm willing to be nominated, as a courtesy to have other members nominate them is great. If you want to nominate yourself, you can do that. It's not like a normal situation where that would never happen, because you all haven't been able to talk to each other. So with that, Ms. Summers, if you'll take the roll.
I'm happy to. Mr. James, what's the most appropriate response for members after I call their name?
Yeah, just here or present is fine for this one. When we get into the election itself, especially if it's contested, you would answer with the last name of the person you're voting for. And the reason this has to be done by call of the roll electronically is because TCA 844-108 requires all electronic meetings by any board or commission that has regulatory authority. If it's an electronic meeting, the votes have to be done by call of the roll.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. James. Okay. Miss Patty Baird.
Present.
Miss Annie Dockery.
Present.
Mr. Lucas Hilliard.
Present.
Mr. Larry Kernagus.
Present.
Miss Lacey Now.
Present.
Miss Brittany Singletary.
Present.
Dr. Catherine Stout.
Present.
Miss Rosemary Winters.
Present.
Mr. James, you have 8 voting members present.
Great. With that, I declare that we have a quorum and we're duly convened in organizational session. The first order of business is the election of a chair. So at this point in time, we'll take nominations. Once we have nominations made, be nice to have a second for each of them. And then I will ask 3 times if there are more nominations, and then we will proceed to a vote. I am perfectly happy if there's no objection to give each candidate a brief moment to explain why they would like to do it or why they're offering their services. So with that, for the nominations of chair, are there any nominations?
This is Larry Kernagus calling. I would be very happy to offer my services in this regard. If you'd like to know why, I can spend some time doing that later.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Mr. Kernagus. Is there a second?
And just as a flag, if you have a second, you can, for example, I'm not a voting member, but I could say, Miss Brianna Summers, second.
Mr. Lucas Hilliard, second.
Okay. So we have a nomination for Mr. Kernagus. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, if we were all in the same place at the same time, I would just say we'd move to elect Mr. Kernagus by acclamation. But again, that portion of the law requires us to do a roll call vote. So Ms. Summers can proceed to the vote unless you'd like to hear Larry talk a little bit about his willingness to serve.
I would love to hear Mr. Kernagus talk about his willingness to serve, just for the record.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. I didn't want to campaign, but I just wanted to tell you that, as a principal and director for special education for, I don't want to tell you how many years, I've learned to plan and coordinate and facilitate discussions on some very critical educational matters. And I have also done considerable amount of public speaking been interviewed a lot on TV and radio. And so if you so wish, I would love to serve you in this capacity, and I will be indeed your servant.
Very good. Well, though it be a formality, it's one that we will do because we adhere to the law. So Ms. Summers will call your name, and then if you'll just respond Kernagis, as he is the only nominee, and then we'll make it official. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Baird,
Kernagis,
Ms. Dockery,
Kernagis.
Mr. Hilliard,
Kernagis.
Mr. Kernagis,
Kernagis.
Ms. Now,
Kernagis.
Ms. Singletary,
Kernagis.
Dr. Stout,
Kernagis.
Ms. Winters.
Kernagis.
Mr. James, you have 10 votes for Mr. Larry Kernagis. I mean, sorry, 8 votes. State board got me. We have 8 members here.
Well, with that, Mr. Kernagis, you have been elected the chairman of the Standards Recommendation Committee for this ensuing term, however long it is, until the State Board of Education adopts these standards on a final reading. Do you accept?
I do, absolutely. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Now we'll get an elected vice chair, and then we'll be off to the races. So who would like or be willing to serve as vice chair?
I would be interested in being considered.
Okay.
I would also like to be considered.
Okay.
Just for the record, do you mind saying your name? I can't see everybody. Was that Ms. Now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And let's do this. Is there a second for Mr. Hilliard?
I'll second.
Is there a second for Ms. Now?
I'll second.
Sorry, for the record, who was the
Patty
second?
Baird.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Baird.
All right. Well, all right, Mr. Hilliard and then Ms. Now, if you'll just address the committee and share what you'd like to share.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the ELA Standards Recommendation Committee and representatives of the Tennessee State Board of Education. I am honored to be given the opportunity to speak with each of you and to be considered for the position of vice chair of this committee. I'll begin by giving you a little bit of background about myself. I grew up in White House, Tennessee, graduating from White House High School. I then attended Vanderbilt University, where I majored in English and biological sciences. After I worked as an editor for the United Methodist Publishing House for 2 years. In 2019, at the end of my tenure at the publishing house, I began to miss the classroom and the unique opportunities it provides for growth and personal development. So I enrolled in a master's program for teaching at Union University and then began applying for jobs in education. I was hired by my alma mater, White House High School, and I have taught there since. I began teaching English 2 and English 3, but I now teach 5 different courses: English 2, AP Seminar, AP Research, AP English Language and Composition, and AP English Literature and Composition. In 2021, I was honored to be named Teacher of the Year at my high school. I have also served meaningful roles outside of the classroom in my time as an educator. I've been a member of the leadership team for Sumner County Schools for 5 years, during which time we oversaw the implementation of a new curricular framework district-wide. I've also acted as a reader for the AP Seminar exam for the past 4 years, ensuring the accuracy of student exam scoring. This year, I was elevated to the role of table leader, in which I oversaw the work of a team of fellow scorers. I believe I am qualified for the role of vice chair for a few reasons. One, I am deeply invested in ensuring Tennessee has the finest ELA standards possible, as I will be teaching those standards myself. And given that I allow the standards to shape everything I do in my classroom, I think it is vital for my sake and for the sake of my students that those standards be excellent. Two, and perhaps most importantly, I recognize the role of the vice chair requires carefulness, attentiveness, and diligence. And I believe those are traits I possess. The role is primarily tasked with managing and submitting all red line edits to state board staff at the conclusion of the SRC workdays. And I have extensive history with tracking such edits from my days as an editor at the United Methodist Publishing House. As the last set of eyes on a number of manuscripts before they were sent to the printer, I developed a knack for noticing the smallest possible details, and I believe this attention to detail will be beneficial, ensuring that the edits our committee sends to the state board staff at the conclusion of our workdays accurately reflect the consensus of the committee. 3, my role on the district's ELA leadership team and my work as a table leader for the AP reading have given me valuable experience in leading teams of educators. Once again, thank you for considering me as a candidate for vice chair. I have absolute faith that this team will accomplish great things together, and I can't wait to begin our work.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Ms. Now.
Good morning, all again. Again, my name is Lacey Now, and first, again, I would like to express my gratitude at how I've been appointed to this committee. I'm excited to serve. From the moment I was appointed, I have been grateful for my part in this small process. I do believe I'm uniquely suited to serve as vice chair. I have a BA in English and an MEd in curriculum and instruction. I also have an EDS in instructional leadership. Over the years, I've taught for more than 12 years now in Rutherford County Schools. I'm a lifelong resident of Tennessee as well. I've worked with students in 6th and 8th grades and in the middle school grade band. Of course, it was necessary that I pay careful attention to the elementary standards and the elementary students because as they got into the 6th grade, of course, they needed to be able to meet the standards and exceed them. In 8th grade, I also not only looked at the standards below the grade, but in the high school grade band as well. And now in my educational experience here at the high school level, I now teach AP Seminar and AP English Language and Composition. And I see just how paramount it is that our students be able to meet and exceed our standards to be able to go on and be college and career ready. I am also an AP reader and have been for several years. And I've held several leadership team roles over the years. I've been PLC lead, I've been department head, and now I enjoy working with my colleagues. I do, however, want to state my appreciation for my district. I work for Rutherford County Schools. I appreciate my superintendent, my school board, my school district, my colleagues, the parents, the students. I do hold firmly to the belief that that these ELA standards review comes at a juncture ripe for the chance to engage in a partnership with the residents of the state of Tennessee in order to preserve and enhance the educational opportunities of the future with clarity and vision. As vice chair, I would ensure the standards revisions are a true representation of the committee decisions. And as I am and have been accustomed to doing and leading various teams over the years, I would help to ensure the process is a smooth, collaborative effort propelled by a common goal of improving the quality of English language arts education for all students with the foresight necessary to equip them for future challenges. Again, I thank you all for allowing me the occasion to serve, and I thank you for your time.
All right, committee, sounds like you've got some awesome candidates to decide between. With that, I would remind you that when you're responding to the call of the roll, that you would respond with Now or Hilliard. And Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Baird?
For Hilliard, yes.
Ms. Dockery?
Hilliard.
Mr. Hilliard?
Hilliard.
Mr. Kernagis?
Hilliard.
Ms. Now?
Now.
Ms. Singletary?
Hilliard.
Dr. Stout?
Miss Now.
Ms. Winters?
Ms. Now.
Okay. Mr. James, you have 5 votes for Mr. Hilliard, 3 votes for Ms. Now.
Mr. Hilliard, you having received a majority of votes, would you accept the role of vice chair?
Yes, I do.
Well, very good. And with that, the organizational session comes to an end. Mr. Kanagas will preside from this point forward, especially if he got that script that was put together for him. Mr. Kanagas, Mr. Hilliard, and any member, I'm happy to serve as the parliamentarian to the board. I'm also happy to do so for each of these committees. If you ever have a question about the process or how that can be done, even if I'm not present for that meeting, any one of these folks can get me on the phone, or you can get me on the phone, and I'll step out of what I'm doing if at all possible and give that advice. So with that, Mr.
Mr.
Kanagas.
James, just for the official record, I just want to congratulate the chair and the vice chair, and also Ms. Now, because this is not an easy thing to do. So I want to celebrate their courage and congratulate them all for just putting themselves forward.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm still trying to download this script here.
Mr. Kanagas, I did
Yes.
in the chat, if that's helpful. Are you able to see the chat?
Yes,
Okay.
I saw a reference on Google Docs, but
Do you see the part where it says Mr. James conducts the election in the chat?
I did see that, yes.
Beautiful. So you can start just after that point.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, we're working on the fly. I appreciate everyone's patience. But we do, the reason why we're doing this is because we truly
Okay,
believe that this is
got
done
it.
by the chair and vice chair
All
versus
right.
staff.
Thank you, Mr. James. State Board of Education meeting policy as well as TCA 844-108 both require all votes taken during electronic meetings of the board to be taken by call the roll. As this is a virtual meeting that's being recorded, I move that the recording serves as the minutes for this meeting. Do I have a second?
Brittany Singletary, second.
Thank you. All in favor? Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Baird? Oh,
In
and the
favor.
response would be yes or no.
Yes.
Ms. Dockery?
Yes.
Mr. Hilliard?
Yes.
Mr. Kanagas?
Yes.
Ms. Now?
Yes.
Ms. Singletary?
Yes.
Dr. Stout?
Yes.
Ms. Winners?
Yes.
Chair Kanagas, you have 8 yeses.
The motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Summer. I'll now ask that Ms. Supe lead us through her presentation on open meetings, public records, and ELA laws. I'm not sure of your pronunciation. Ms. Supe?
You got it correct.
Okay.
It's Supe, but I respond
Supe.
to any forms of it, so it's no pressure.
Certainement.
Let me pull up my slides. Give me 1 second. Okay. Slideshow. All right. Can everybody see my slides now? Okay,
Yes.
good. I can only see a few of you, which is probably for the best. I don't want to see any sleeping faces. Just kidding. I'm Rachel Supe, as I already introduced myself. I'm the general counsel for the state board. I've been here almost a year now, which feels crazy. It's gone by pretty quickly. But I'm happy to speak to you today about any of the legal requirements that are particularly important for you all to keep in mind when you're serving on the committee. Like Brianna already said this morning, you know, we don't want to just chat at you the whole time. I really would love for this to be more of an interactive discussion. So anytime you have questions or comments, please, you know, come off mute enter a question in the chat and we'll make sure to monitor it and get you an answer right away. Okay. Hold on. You know I'm not the best with technology here. Advance it into the next slide. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, what are we going to look at specifically today? Open Meetings Act requirements. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with those, especially if you've worked in public education, but we will dive into it just as a refresher. A very similar law requires that certain governmental records be open to inspection, just as the way the meetings are open to inspection. So we'll cover that too. And since you are all discussing English language arts related standards, I wanted you to be aware of some of the laws we have here in Tennessee that you want to keep in mind when making recommendations this week. Specifically, we'll look at the law around Common Core. We'll look at the law about prohibited concepts in instruction. And we're also going to talk about Bible standards. So that is what I have planned between now and 11. And I think we'll be able to get through all of it. But again, I've left plenty of time for question and answer if you have any. So we'll start with the open meetings law. And here is the citation in code. If you would like to read the full law in your own time, you are welcome to do that. But we've tried to summarize the most relevant points that you as this group would need to know. There's a lot of things in there that probably is not as relevant to your work on this committee. I don't know why my slides don't want to advance, so just bear with me. Here. Okay. All right, let's dive into the Open Meetings Act. Are any of you on this call familiar with this law? I'm sure you've heard. I see some. Okay, good to know our chair is familiar with it. Anyone else? This law applies to all local and state governments in Tennessee. So many of you, whether you know it or not, might even have more experience than you're aware of in this law. So what does it say? It says that the formation of public policy and decisions is public business and shall not be conducted in secret. Pretty straightforward. It also says that all meetings of any governing body are declared to be public meetings open to the public at all times, except as provided by the Constitution of Tennessee. So the legislature and the courts interpret this law very broadly and very much in favor of the public and transparency and openness. So unless there's something specific and explicit in the law that says this isn't available or accessible to the public, then most likely the default is that it is going to be accessible and available to the public. So as I told you, the Open Meetings Act applies to certain governing bodies. And I have the definition up on the slide. Do you think that the Standards Recommendation Committee would meet the definition of a governing body? Any brave volunteers want to weigh in, yes or no? There are no wrong answers. Any guesses?
No, I think of all the background information you've given us, it sounds like we have a responsibility as a governing body, at least with this limited scope.
I would agree with you. I think that's right. You are a body of 2 or more people. Do you have the authority to make decisions or recommendations to the fuller state board? Yes, you do. You can recommend standards to them. And your recommendation is on a matter related to public policy, right? What could be more related to policy than what we're teaching our kids in schools? So for all of those reasons, this law does apply to you, and we do need to make sure our meetings are open. I don't know what is going on with my slides. There we go. What is the definition of a meeting? Is today a meeting of this body? Will next week be a meeting of the body? This is the definition that is in statute. The convening of a government body or public body to make a decision or deliberate towards a decision on any matter. So again, any guesses as to whether or not your work on the committee this week and next would meet the definition of a meeting?
Absolutely.
I agree, absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
If I call Brianna to get answer some questions on logistics and resources, that's not a meeting, correct?
That's right. And we'll talk about that. We'll go through some examples to test your knowledge of whether it's a meeting that applies or whether or not. But I like where you're going with that thinking. So we will get there in just 1 or 2 slides. Any other questions before I keep moving forward? I know this is not the most riveting area of law, but it is a crucial one that we follow. We don't want to have to come back and do this all a second time if we didn't do it in compliance with the open meeting requirements the first time. They will make us redo it all. So the last question is, what is deliberation? And this answer comes straight from statute: to examine and consult in order to form an opinion, to weigh arguments for and against a proposed course of action. I want you to memorize that definition and keep it in the forefront of your brains as you're serving on the committee. When you're not sure who you can discuss it with, when you're allowed to discuss it, if you harken back to the definition of deliberation, it should provide you, I think, the guidance you need to know the answer. You're also welcome to reach out to any members of the legal team if you have questions throughout the week about any of these laws and requirements. All right. So a little bit more detail about the open meetings laws. For every public meeting of a governing body, which we have determined we constitute one, there's some additional requirements. Number 1, the governing body must reserve a period of public comment to provide the public with the opportunity to comment on matters that are germane to the agenda. So what that means is if you have someone who signs up to want to give public comment, as long as they would like to speak on something that is germane to the items on the agenda, and they've followed our own procedures for signing up, they will most likely be allowed to do so. And this is where our rule lives about public comment. and the rule outlines the requirements to sign up. So a speaker must make the request at least 48 hours in advance. Those requests get submitted to Dr. Sarah Morrison, our executive director, who will then let staff, Brianna, myself, Todd, know if anyone has signed up to speak. If no one has signed up to speak, we will skip the public comment period, but it is too soon at this point to know that. The speaker is allowed to speak for 3 minutes. And the germane question is decided by the committee chair. Usually those will be pretty, straightforward decisions. If someone's asking to make a comment on something that's listed in the agenda, 9 times out of 10, that would be germane. I'm trying to think of a situation when it wouldn't be. Hard to come up with one though. So if you are not sure if a comment is germane or not, please reach out, to the legal team, and we're happy to help work through any of those questions. But again, in the interest and in the spirit of the law, which is openness and transparency, it's best to err on the side of letting the public make their comments. And our rule does say that public comments must be, may be submitted in writing. So if you don't have folks who sign up to come speak to you in person this week, they still have the opportunity to send comments via email or mail, and you all will be provided a copy of all of those comments that are submitted so that you can review them while you're working and decide whether or not to incorporate them into your recommendation. A few more notes about the public commenters. Again, at this point in time, we don't know if anyone has signed up to give public comment. We won't know that until 48 hours before our first working day. And let me explain why that is. A public comment period is not required for a public meeting for which there are no actionable items on the agenda. Today is a public meeting, right? Do we have anything actionable on the agenda, meaning voting or, aside from, making any recommendations or decisions on the standards, any kind of substantive things like that? We're not making those decisions today. Today is just presentations mostly. So for that reason, we don't have a public comment period today, but on your actual working days, the days where you are going to be coming to, a decision and a recommendation, those are the days where the public are entitled to make a comment if they so choose.
That's also why earlier we said we were open an organizational session, because it is the body deciding who will preside over them. But that's strictly for organization. You're not making a recommendation as to the public policy of the state of Tennessee.
Thank you, Nathan. That's helpful. Let's keep it moving. Few questions that we often get about these. What if you all go out to dinner one night after working and coming to your first day of recommendations? Are you allowed to discuss SRC related stuff at dinner, I should say? Any brave guesses, yes or no? Don't be shy. We're all friends in the cone.
No.
No? Anyone want to argue yes?
Could we discuss something where a vote has already been decided, such as the chair and the vice chair? It's just the first example that comes to mind.
That's a great question. let me read you what the AG opinion on this says. Well, classic lawyer answer is it depends. So sorry about that, but I will explain to you why it depends. So the Attorney General's office has weighed in on this question. Can members share a meal and casually discuss government business issues before their respective bodies if the discussion is for informative purposes only and no decisions are reached or attempts made to obtain commitment? And here is what the AG answered. While two or more members may share a meal together in which public business is discussed, the discussion should not constitute deliberations, i.e. examining and consulting in order to form an opinion, weighing arguments for and against a proposed course of action. I would say, to answer your question, err on the side of caution, because even if you all have taken your final vote, the board hasn't voted on it yet. So it's still, you know, up for debate, I'd say, and hasn't really been finalized. So I would say just take caution, err on the side of caution. And if someone mentions something to you that you feel like is something you shouldn't be discussing, either over email or without the larger group or without the live stream, you just can say, oh, are we supposed to be talking about that? Or let me just check with legal and make sure this is okay for us to discuss. You know, we want to be on call to help you all week. But if you don't want to reach out to us or you can't, just always try to err on the side of caution. And if you're not sure, then just go with whatever answer you think would be the safest answer and the best way to protect transparency with the public. But let's look at some examples. All right, here's your first pop quiz. This is all of you going out to happy hour tonight. Not tonight, but let's say you've had a long day of looking at standards and you're ready for a mojito and want to go out and debrief with all of your committee members. This is legally risky territory, so here we go. I'm just kidding. This is going to be a very easy pop quiz. I'm going to read you some statements. Let me know what you think, if they're okay to share or not okay to share. Now I'm trying to find where I wrote them down. Okay. Statement number 1. What time do we arrive in the morning? Is that okay to say to one of your committee members in a text? Or no?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Why yes? Can you explain to me your reasoning?
Because it is not deliberations looking to form an opinion about what we're going to be talking about.
You got it, Larry. And I might have made these a little too easy for this group. So next year, I'll make them tougher. How about this one? I don't think we should attempt to incorporate Samantha's suggestion.
No, we can't discuss that.
Why is that a no?
Because that would be considered deliberation on a proposed action.
That was music to my ears. Thank you. That's a no-no, right? Because that is kind of weighing things for or against the policy decision. What about, can we find some time to chat during tomorrow's meeting? Do we think that's kosher or not kosher? There's no wrong answers here. Any guesses?
I know
Can
my
you find some
educators.
time to speak? Oh, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, I know my educators on the call know what it's like to, Bueller. So encourage you to jump in.
I'm going to call on Brianna in a second to see what her thoughts are. I guess I stumped you on one of them.
I would say that it would probably be okay if you were going to talk with them in front of everybody else, but not if you're intending to pull them to the side during the meeting.
Yes, that is 100% music to my ears. Can we find some time to chat during tomorrow's meeting? That statement in and of itself isn't weighing policy arguments for or against. It's just teeing up that, hey, at the meeting, when we're being live streamed and it's open to the public, there is something I want to talk about. And you're just putting it on that person's radar. You're not going into detail, so it's not considered deliberation. And let's see, what do we got next? To which committee are you assigned? That might not make sense in this group, huh, Brianna, because they're all on the same committee.
That's okay. I'm sure we'll have some, division of labor in some context.
To which SRC committee are you assigned?
Yes, because it's just informational. There's no deliberation.
Yes, I don't know who said that, but you got it right. So congratulations. I couldn't see who it was though. Come on. There it is. Oops. Did I just give that one away? I did. I gave 2 away, sorry. I love the group photo we took at lunch. That does not violate the Open Meetings Act. To which committee are you assigned also does not, violate the act. I wouldn't want to go too much beyond that, but there's nothing wrong with asking that question because you're not really talking about a particular policy or decision being made. What about, you've been a teacher long enough to know that's not in our students' best interest.
It's a value statement is being made there. It's just a suggest an opinion, so probably not.
1 vote for no. Any votes for yes?
I vote for yes.
Oh, okay. Tell me why.
I think you are talking about the deliberations at that point.
You think it is deliberations at that point?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think you two are in agreement, right? Yes, it could be deliberation, so no, it should not be said. Yep, there she is. You've been a teacher long enough to know that this is in our students' best interest. This sounds to me like someone trying to convince their colleagues of their opinion on a standard, and that is absolutely deliberating. What about this last one? That public comment suggestion has no place in our standards. Is that a yes or a no?
I would say no to that. It's deliberation.
I would say so too. I agree. Struggling with my slides today. And that is, you're making a value judgment and you're saying it to your colleague. It's probably trying to convince them of your stance. So these are just the kinds of conversations to be mindful when you're outside of, the public setting, when you're texting, anything like that. Keep in mind that any deliberation, any weighing of arguments for or against should be done during the meeting itself. Any questions so far?
I have a clarifying question. On the second permissible question, can we find some time to chat during tomorrow's meeting. If that got more particular, if we said something along the lines of, can we find some time to discuss that particular alteration to the standard during tomorrow's meeting, would that specificity then push it into the realm of not permissible?
That's a good question. I still think it sounds logistical in nature. So I would be fine with you saying, hey, can we find some time to discuss XYZ standard tomorrow? But I wouldn't go, much beyond that. That feels logistical. I would hope that the person who responds says either yes or no, but not a lot more than that. And that way, you have a logistical plan for tomorrow, but any of the deliberation, meaning the debate back and forth, weighing of arguments back and forth, could only happen tomorrow. And I think you are doing a good job in that text message of teeing up that there is something that needs to be discussed, but it can't be discussed now and it can only be discussed tomorrow. So I would feel fine with that. Any other questions?
I'm assuming this is going to be a no, but would we not be able to comment on some of the documents in our shared drive, for example? Like if we wrote comments on the shared drive?
That is a good question. Did we get to open records yet? No, I don't think we did. So that is coming up, and I will make sure when we discuss records, we'll talk about commenting and all of that. So you are a step ahead of me. A few little final notes about the Open Meetings Act. A few more commonly asked questions. Let's say two of you run into each other down on Broadway tonight. That's more exciting than my coffee in the lobby example. You're at Roberts and you see your co-committee member from across the dance floor, and you say, hey, Larry, want to talk about some standards real quick? What should Larry's answer be?
Not today. Let's dance.
Yes, that is a perfect answer. Not today, but let's dance. So why is that? Here's what the law says. Incidental or unplanned encounters by two or more members do not inherently violate the law, but they can violate the law if they evolve into or are used to decide or deliberate public business. So Larry did a good job cutting that conversation off to make sure that the conversation didn't evolve to decide or deliberate public business. And this is in the law called a chance meeting. And the law is very clear that you cannot, sorry, I'm having all these slide issues, that you cannot use a chance meeting to purposely deliberate public business in circumvention of act. So I can't say, hey, Brianna, I'm going to be down at Margaritaville tonight. If you happen to see me there, I'll be there thinking about Bible standards. Maybe you'll see me. And then Brianna strolls through the lobby of Margaritaville to have a conversation with me about Bible standards. That would be a chance meeting where it's very clear that, even if I bump into her in Margaritaville or somehow mention to her that I might be there, it's circumventing the spirit of the act. So we don't want to do that. I swear I don't spend as much time on Broadway as I currently sound like I do. But once in a while. All right. Here's another common question. Why can't we just discuss this all over email? Wouldn't that make things a lot easier? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. The law says that you cannot use email to circumvent the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. So just like chance encounters, you know, if you are emailing with your committee members or even one other committee member, and if you're talking about things like policy and government business rather than, you know, what you want to order from your Uber Eats order that day, that's when it can cross a line. And so even emails back and forth amongst all of you can violate the Open Meetings Act if you are using them to deliberate offline rather than in public, if that makes sense. Any questions so far? Text messages. I want to really warn you about text messages. No one in this group, but sometimes I've heard, you know, folks think that as long as they're sending text messages from their personal phone to another person's personal phone, that's not a public record. But that is not correct. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. If you are texting about a policy decision or weighing arguments for and against the policy decision over a text message with one of your colleagues, that's no different than using email. The point of it is that neither of those conversations are taking place in the public realm. So that's the problem with using text or email. Before I move on to open records, any questions about open meetings? I know we still have one question about records on the back burner. All right. Here is the legal citation and code for the Tennessee Public Records Statute. And so what does the law require of state agencies in terms of public records? This is what the law says. All state, county, and municipal records shall, at all times, be open for personal inspection by any citizen in the state. That's the bulk of what you need to know. What is a public record? There are three elements that I want you to keep in mind. All three of these have to be present for something to be considered a public record. Number one, documents, papers, letters, maps, films, recordings, audio and visual recordings. I mean, it's really quite broad. If you're taking notes by hand, if you are taking notes on one of those pads where they have a fancy pen that, I don't know, I'm not good with technology, but, you know, it'll send it to your computer, that kind of thing. Those could all be considered public records if, part two, if the record was made or received pursuant to law or ordinance or in connection with the transaction of official business. And number three, by any governmental agency. So let's break this down as it relates to us. The important thing, I think, for you to all distill from this is just any correspondence you send, whether it's email, text, letters, your own personal notes, are largely going to be considered a public record because they are related to a law, right? The Standards Recommendation Committee law. Sorry. They are considered official business, and we are at State Board a governmental agency. And this includes records in draft form. So if you have draft emails sitting in your inbox, draft recommendations that aren't completed yet, those might still be considered a public record. Oops. So again, here are more examples of public records. What I do want to stress to you, especially about text messages, There's a common misconception that if you're not issued a state-owned cell phone, then your records any text messages on those calls are not public records. But that is not the case. If you are using your phone to have substantive discussions and debates with your committee members, not only, would that be an open record, but it would be an open record that potentially violates the Open Meetings Act. What about sensitive or private records? This is what the law says. I'm giving you a full recap here. The records of this state have to be open for inspection at all times during business hours by any citizen. But this last part is what I want you to know for now, unless otherwise made confidential by state law. So what is, Brianna, do I have till 11?
Yes.
I better get moving. Okay, thank you. Can you think of any examples of sensitive records that are shielded from the public record statute that can't be released?
Records about public safety and security are shielded.
Yes. Certain records about safety and security in schools. That's correct. Any other guesses? The first thing that always comes to mind for me are student records. Those are protected as confidential under the law for the most part. So this sentence here, these 4 bullet points tell us that all the records have to be open for inspection unless those laws were made confidential by state law. So if student records were made confidential by state law, then they don't fall under this. Does that make sense? Some other common exemptions, I'm not going to read them all to you, but a lot of, it's not just students, it's a lot of employee, state or local employee data that is protected. So your social security number, your home address, all of those are exceptions and are not public records. We've been through this quite a little bit already, so I'm just going to go pretty quickly. But yes, your Teams chats, your emails, your text messages to one another about SRC are public records. And because they are all public records, and we do receive quite a number of public record requests, my one request of you is just to make sure that, any discussions of the board or the process in your text and emails, reflect the highest light and respect for this process and the board. If you do have concerns, certainly come to Brianna or the other leaders to discuss them, but we'd rather find out about them so we can fix them than, potentially get a media request and see it on the billboard on the side of the highway. So that was my one request to you. I'm going to skip ahead because I'm a little behind on my time. ELA law, Common Core. Are you all familiar with Common Core? I'm sure. I don't want to give you too much background, so I'm going to paraphrase it here. But Tennessee has a law on statute that prohibits the adoption, approval, or use or instructional materials. You'll see me use the abbreviation TIM. That stands for textbooks and instructional materials that were created to align exclusively with the Common Core state standards or that are marketed or otherwise identified as Common Core textbooks or materials. The law says that the department must withhold funds from an LEA that intentionally violates this prohibition. Intentionally is the key word there. And if ever a district wants to use textbook and instructional materials that are not on the state approved list, they have to submit a waiver and an assurance that the materials they're proposing to use are not aligned, do not exclusively align, and are not marketed or identified as Common Core. I'm going to go ahead and skip through for a little bit unless anyone wants to do a deep dive on Common Core. I think I've seen prohibited concepts questions coming up a little bit more than Common Core, so I want to just dig into this. The law in space is pretty straightforward. Are all of you on this call familiar with this law? It was passed in 2021, and the law is a Tennessee law that says LEAs may not include or promote the following concepts in their instruction, curriculum, or materials. I am going to read them to all of you. I wouldn't normally go through them one by one, but you do need to know them as you're going into your work this week. Number one race or sex is inherently superior to another. An individual, by virtue of their race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or subconsciously. An individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment due to their race or sex. Moral character is determined by an individual's race or sex. An individual, by virtue of their race or sex, bears the responsibility for past actions by the same race or sex. An individual should feel discomfort, guilt, guilt's in there twice, anguish, or another form of psychological distress solely because of their race or sex. A meritocracy is inherently racist or sexist. Tennessee and the U.S. are fundamentally or irredeemably racist or sexist. Advocating for the violent overthrow of the United States government. Division between or resentment of a race, sex, religion, creed, nonviolent political affiliation, social class, or class of people. Ascribing characteristic traits, values, morals, or other ethical codes, privileges, or beliefs to a race or sex. The rule of law does not exist, but instead is a series of power relationships and struggles among racial and other groups. All Americans are not created equal and are not endowed with their creator with certain unalienable rights, or the government should deny equal protection of the law. It is okay to include a history of an ethnic group as described in properly adopted materials, impartial discussion of a controversial aspect of history, impartial instruction on the historical oppression of a particular group of people based on race, ethnicity, class, nationality, religion, or region, and historical documents relevant to the above three items. Now, I know that was a pretty quick summary, but I want to make sure I save a few minutes for Bible, and then I'll go through these real quick, and any questions we can take at the end. So the last statute that I wanted to talk to you about was a 2008 law, and this is what it said. The state board may approve academic standards for an elective state-funded course consisting of non-sectarian, non-religious academic study of Bible. Non-sectarian, you all know what that means, but we don't want these standards to be promoting, one particular sect or one viewpoint over another. And the law does say that state boards shall, meaning must, include in its list of approved high school courses an elective Bible course. Currently, just so you're aware of the state of the land, there are no state-approved Bible textbook and instructional materials. Instead, the Bible courses are supposed to align to the state board's 2009 academic standards, which I've linked to you here. And there are no LEAs that have currently developed curriculum for Bible that has been approved by TDOE. The Bible course may include the impact of Bible on literature, art, music, culture, and politics. They have to meet the standards of the state. And the course must be taught in an objective and non-devotional manner with no attempt made to indoctrinate students. Not include teaching of a religious doctrine or sectarian interpretation of the Bible or of texts from other religious or cultural traditions, and not disparage or encourage a commitment to a particular set of religious beliefs. Now we got 4 minutes for questions, and that can be on anything we've covered during the last hour. Do you have any questions for me about anything we've discussed?
Well, we're on the Bible. Does the opportunity to do that make it imperative that we consider that as part of the ELA standards, or would we recommend that, or can we recommend that it be relegated to the history standards?
I can jump in, Rachel, if
That
that's
is a
helpful.
good question. Sure. I know you and I were talking about that the other day, so I'm thinking Brianna probably knows this better than I do.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Chair Kearney, I guess I should say. So right now it is in the ELA standards that the committee could potentially make that recommendation. It would be sort of separate to the scope of this committee directly, but because it would need to be brought before members as a separate item because it's actually in one of our other policies. It is an option. When we get there, I'll have a whole flag of sort of like recommendations that you have. I will say that we just wrapped up. So we, when I did my introduction meetings with you all, if you may remember, the State Board of Education leads math, science, social studies, and ELA. Right now we're on ELA and it goes in a rinse, wash, repeat sort of cycle. We just wrapped up social studies. So that recommendation wouldn't take place for perhaps over a decade. I can double check exactly how much that would be. But it's certainly something we can talk about, but we'll have a whole section on your decision-making spreadsheet that Mr. Hilliard will lead, which are recommendations you have for members, the department, districts, you know, to sort of balance the, you know, our locus of control or the standards, but we know the standards have downstream impacts. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes.
I'll get that exact number for you.
Questions? Anything else?
So are we able to discuss standards with our colleagues, for example, or would that be considered a violation?
That's a great question. Since are these colleagues who serve on this committee with you or no? You know,
No,
I would
sorry.
say not. Okay. There's no Open Meetings Act violation if you discuss it with someone who's not on the committee. So legally, I don't see a problem whether, Brianna and Michael are wanting to kind of keep it under wraps until a recommendation is made. I don't know. So I'll call on them to take that question from a non-legal perspective.
That was perfect, Rachel. Always grateful for your advice there. So my first thought is that we will have, so we've done 2 public comment periods thus far on Survey 1 and Survey 2. However, to Rachel's point, members can submit written public comment now up until the morning of September 8th. So you're welcome to send that to me. And as Rachel mentioned, any of those comments I will put in your folder for review. And they could also sign up for public comment. on any of those days, or any of our in-person work days, so 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. One flag there, if you were to engage with any of your, constituents, because you are appointed members, on certain days we'll handle certain standards. So for example, if they wanted to comment on writing, I believe we're doing writing on Wednesday, so the ask would just be that. And of course, if they couldn't come in person in Nashville, that's why we have the option for written, because we know, folks are across the state. Michael, what am I forgetting?
I think you covered everything. The only thing that was in the back of my mind was kind of similar to what you already shared. If there is a particular issue that you think your stakeholder groups would be especially interested in providing feedback, just make sure you share those opportunities. But there's nothing that prohibits you from having that conversation directly with them to help inform what you bring to the committee. If that makes sense.
Yeah, Michael, I appreciate you making that clear. That is right. You all are public officials in your own right. You can have conversations with who you want to have conversations with beyond your specific obligations under the law here. So, suit your conscience on that. It's a matter of, if you're in conversation with individual folks that have strong opinions on it, it's also a good opportunity to say, hey, we have a public comment period. It's going to be like this, or if you want to send me a written document or whatever, talking for yourself. There's nothing to limit you from your ability to communicate with other people there that are not on this committee.
Yeah, and they're of course also welcome to come and attend and view. We had teachers come on both committees last time.
That was actually my question. I would imagine that the history or social studies standards review is probably most analogous to ELA. How many approximately people came to speak at public comments when it was held in person? Just trying to get, I guess, a snapshot of what to expect when we have the in-person sessions.
I don't know if that was for me.
Yeah, I was there, and I don't really remember any.
I don't believe there were any public comments last year. Right?
Yeah, I can. So I started this position
on Tennessee history.
Well, Nathan, I guess I'm referring to people physically coming in person to speak. I know there were a couple of folks in the audience, I guess you could say, that kind of observed the process throughout the week, who were pretty knowledgeable on certain aspects, and they certainly shared their perspectives in various ways. But it was mostly done in writing, so it was mostly provided to members. As Brianna mentioned, like when we get feedback on the standards, over email, or if you all get an email, or if there's a formal letter written, that is all provided to you as part of your sort of suite of information to help you make decisions. But as far as somebody coming formally speaking in person, I don't recall that happening.
Yeah, everything you're saying.
I think,
Michael, go ahead, Rachel.
I forgot to mention one thing, which I should have. I apologize. But if we do have people come in to speak during the public comment period, I want to make sure you're all clear on your roles. You are not legally obligated to respond. You don't have to kind of get into a policy discussion with them. In fact, it's usually best kind of not to. We don't want to engage in a back and forth. That said, if you have questions for them or clarifying questions or want them to add on to something, you certainly have the right to ask that of any public presenters. They do not have the right to ask any questions of you, though. So if they say to you, hey, when's this whole process going to be done? Sure, you can respond if you'd like to, but generally you're not required to give responses, and it's really meant to just be not a question and answer session so much as a session where someone comes up, reads their statement, you all hear it, take it down, and then think on it. But I don't want you to feel obligated to engage in a conversation with any of the public speakers.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. A couple notes on my end. One, you do already have some feedback documents in your folder, which is part of your prep work, including, some of you expressed interest in AI. So the State Collaborative on Reforming Education put together a memo just for you all to help guide your discussion. Two members of the public have reached out to me personally to ask about public comment, so they may or may not come. And there might have been a third thing that's now escaped me. But yeah, if you have any questions going forward, definitely let me know. And I know we're 5 minutes over, so if anybody needs to jet, especially if you've got a sub coverage, I totally understand.
Does this conclude the work of this meeting?
I think we're good on my end. Any objections to that from Chair Kanagas?
All right, so let's say that we have concluded the work of this meeting. We meet next virtually, that is virtually, on September 5th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Central Time. Are there any final questions or comments as you gather your thoughts on that? I must say that I am very excited about working with this very qualified group of folks on this very important activity. Any questions or comments out there? Well, with no further business of the committee, this meeting is adjourned. We'll see you on the 5th.
Bye all, thanks.